Good evening from the State of Kuwait. Welcome to the 7 o'clock news for Friday, the 30th of January 2015. I am Dalia Badran with the headlines for tonight. The State of Kuwait condemns the terrorist bombing that took place in Egypt's North Sinai, killing dozens of civilians. The custodian of the two holy mosques issues a number of royal decrees reshuffling the cabinet and offering grants to citizens. Egyptian President, His Excellency Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, cut short a visit to an African Union summit after attacks that killed 30 in Sinai. A bomb blast at a mosque in southern Pakistan kills at least 35 people and injures many more. Hello and welcome. An official source at the Foreign Ministry expressed the State of Kuwait's strong condemnation and denunciation of the terrorist bombing that took place in Egypt's North Sinai and led to the killing and wounding of dozens of civilians. The source said in a statement that these terrorist acts underline the importance of efforts made by the international community to combat terrorism, according to Kuwait's firm stance in rejecting all forms of terrorism and its participation with the international efforts to end them. The source prayed to Allah Almighty to bless the victims with His mercy and wished the wounded a speedy recovery. The United Nations Development Programme, the UNDP, in collaboration with the Arab Planning Institute, the API, organized the ceremony to launch the 2014 Global Human Development Report. The event took place at the headquarters of the API and was attended by a number of officials, ambassadors, as well as local and regional entities. More details in the following report by Heba Abdurrahman.
By a number of ambassadors, official persona, local and regional institutions, Minister of State for Housing Affairs Yasser Abul inaugurated the official launch of the 2014 Global Human Development Report, which came under the patronage of Sheikh Jaber al-Mubarak al-Hamad al-Subah, the Prime Minister. The event took place at the Arab Planning Institute as it represents a good partner with the United Nations Office in Kuwait, UNDP.
UNDP Kuwait is proud to partner with the Arab Planning Institute for this launch, held for the first time, as we heard from the Excellency the Minister, which is organized under the patronage of His Highness the Prime Minister Sheikh Jaber al-Mubarak al-Hamad al-Sabah. We are extremely grateful for him, for his generosity, and sir, it's a pleasure that you have given us the honor to be with us at this occasion. Our deep recognition is also due to His Highness the Emir of Kuwait, recently recognized by the United Nations Secretary General as the global humanitarian leader. Under his leadership, Kuwait has also agreed to host the next pledging conference for the Syrian crisis on March 31, and we're extremely grateful to him.
It's worth noting that the 2014 Human Development Report comes at a critical time as attention turns to the creation of a new development agenda following the 2015 deadline for achieving the Millennium Development Goals, or the MDG. Addressing human development from an integrated perspective for enhanced resilience has been advocated for through the series of Arab Human Development Reports produced by UNDP's Regional Bureau for Arab States since 2002. Representing His Highness Sheikh Jaber al-Mubarak al-Hamad al-Subah, the Prime Minister, Minister of State for Housing Affairs Yasser Abul officially inaugurated this annual event, which helps in strengthening the human development on all levels. From the Arab Planning Institute in Shueikh area, I am Heba Abdurrahman reporting for English News.
Thank you, Heba. The custodian of the two holy mosques, King Salman bin Abdulaziz, has issued a series of royal orders that ushered in fresh new faces into state institutions and awarded financial support for many Saudis. The king also ordered a total of 112 billion Saudi riyals spending in the kingdom. The king reshuffled some top government jobs while keeping in place the top ministers, as he ordered a large payout to all state employees. Meanwhile, the king announced an amnesty for some inmates held in Saudi jails. Egyptian President His Excellency Abdel Fattah al-Sisi today cut short a visit to an African Union summit to deal with a series of deadly attacks in the Sinai Peninsula. Attacks against military and police targets in North Sinai late on Thursday left at least 30 dead and many more wounded. The militant group Sinai Province said, which has pledged allegiance to the so-called Islamic State, said it carried out the attacks. The attacks represent some of the worst violence in Egypt for months. Emergency services were still digging in the rubble for bodies today, and 2 children died from wounds they had reportedly received on Thursday. Security outside the Japanese embassy in Amman was tight today as a deadline for a possible prisoner swap was set by the so-called Islamic State militants holding a Japanese journalist and a Jordanian military pilot passed with no sign of whether the 2 men were still alive. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and Foreign Minister Fumio Kishida reiterated that Japan was in close contact with the Jordanian government working towards the release of the journalist. The officials said the Japanese government was asking Jordan to strengthen security for the embassies and consulates there and urged Japanese nationals living in Jordan to be cautious. Meanwhile, Jordan said it would only release an Al-Qaeda prisoner from death row if it got proof the airman was alive. The hostage drama began last week after the IS group released a video showing a Japanese journalist and another hostage beside a masked man who threatened to kill them in 72 hours unless Japan paid a $200 million ransom. The United States and coalition partners launched 6 airstrikes against the so-called Islamic State targets in Syria and 12 more in Iraq as they kept up pressure on the insurgent group. The U.S. military said that among the strikes were 5 near Kobani, striking an IS fighting position, 3 tactical units, and a large unit. The Pentagon said this week the militants had been driven out of 90% of Kobani, a city near the border with Turkey where fighting has raged for 4 months. Meanwhile, the airstrikes in Iraq hit near Al-Assad, Al-Ratba, Mosul, Sinjar, and Tal Afar, hitting targets including IS tactical units, buildings, vehicles, and the weapons storage facility. Also in Iraq, security sources said the so-called Islamic State militants struck at Kurdish forces southwest of the city of Kirkuk today, while bombs in Baghdad and Samarra killed dozens of people. Earlier in the day, the IS group launched mortars and attacked positions of Kurdish Peshmerga fighters in 4 districts in Kirkuk, killing a senior Kurdish military commander and 8 soldiers. The sources said at least 18 people were killed when 2 bombs went off in Baghdad's Bab al-Sharqi district, which houses most government buildings. 3 civilians were later killed and at least 10 others wounded in northwestern Baghdad when mortars landed in residential neighborhoods. Elsewhere, 2 suicide bombers targeted a security checkpoint in the city center of Samarra, killing 3 and wounding 5 others. Police thwarted a 3rd suicide attack by shooting a suspected militant, but clashes broke out on the western outskirts of Samarra following another explosion with the police and the militias battling the IS fighters. The four-day meeting in Moscow between representatives of the Syrian government and opposition forces concluded on Thursday, setting a positive beginning for more talks leading up to a political settlement of the country's crisis. 10 agreements were made in the talks in the past 2 days, including halting attacks on civilians, releasing hostages, and lifting food sanctions against Syria. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said the ongoing conflict in Syria should be solved through dialogue with no foreign interference. He said the task of all Syrian sides to find solutions and start dialogue requires significant effort, concessions and compromises. The participants agreed to hold another round of Syrian-to-Syrian dialogue on topics ranging from fight against terrorism to the ending long-time conflicts. Israeli forces violently dispersed weekly demonstrations held by Palestinians in several parts of the occupied West Bank. Palestinians stage protests every Friday against the ongoing Israeli settlement building and the Israel separation wall, which snakes across the occupied West Bank, isolating large areas of Palestinian territories. More details in the following report by our correspondent in Ramallah, Fatima Abdul Karim.
In the holy city of Jerusalem, Friday means especially heightened security restrictions that Israeli forces impose on Palestinians to impede their movement and limit their access to the Holy Aqsa Mosque and attempt to ban them from performing the Friday prayers.
Recently, Al-Aqsa Mosque is under serious attack of Judaization, as well as banning Palestinians from access into it, although Israel claims to respect all human rights and the right to access places of worship.
In the face of the numerous Israeli violations and the tightened restrictions on movement and access of Palestinians, comes the Palestinian popular resistance face to face with the Israeli land grab policy. Here in Belain, the Palestinian popular resistance, with its diverse national spectrum, demonstrated against the Israeli annexation of land belonging to the village. Demonstrators call for no less than tearing down the wall and the end of all forms of Israeli land theft, as they call it, as well as its ban on movement and access.
We continue our protest until the stopping the confiscated land, the building settlement, the arrested of our friends, the Palestinians, especially in the last time, the children, and also in addition to that, they attacking the Al-Aqsa many times.
Israeli forces dispersed the demonstrators with tear gas grenades, rubber-coated bullets, and even live ammunition, but leaving no serious injuries. Fatima Abdul Karim, Kuwait TV, Ramallah, Palestine.
A bomb blast ripped through a mosque in Pakistan just as worshippers were gathering for Friday prayers, killing 35 people and wounding dozens more. The attack took place in Shikarpur in Sindh province, north of the port city of Karachi, and police said at least 50 people were wounded in the attack. The death toll is expected to rise as many of the wounded are in critical condition. Local media reports suggest that the blast could have been a suicide attack, but police are still investigating. There was no immediate claim of responsibility. Pentagon officials said a gunman killed 3 U.S. contractors and wounded a 4th at the Kabul airport in Afghanistan. A local Afghan was also killed in the attack on the military side of the airport, with reports suggesting that the shooter was an Afghan soldier. The Taliban subsequently claimed responsibility for the attack. In other developments, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, or the UNHCR, said more than 200,000 refugees have crossed into Afghanistan from Pakistan since June last year. The refugees are trying to escape their army's bombardment of insurgent hideouts on the borders. Around 60,000 of them are living in a makeshift camp in a minefield 20 kilometers from the border near one of Afghanistan's most troubled eastern provinces. The UNHCR said almost half of them are children. The Philippines today held a day of mourning for 44 police commandos killed in a clash with the rebels. The bodies of those who died were returned to Manila on Thursday. They were honored today in a ceremony led by President Benigno Aquino. The violence took place in a southern province on Sunday. Police seeking two terror suspects entered a village held by the militants who signed a peace deal with the government last year to end years of fighting. However, the rebels say police did not communicate with them about the operation as required under the deal, leading to the accidental clash. United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon said today that he would never stop calling for the immediate and unconditional release of the school children kidnapped by Boko Haram militants in Nigeria last year. Speaking at the African Union Summit in the Ethiopian capital Addis Ababa, a spokesperson for the Secretary General had earlier in the week said that the UN chief would use the summit to urge officials to find a solution to the violent threat posed by Boko Haram. The group is increasing its attacks as Nigeria prepares for February 14th elections. The militants were reported this week to be rampaging through villages in northeastern Nigeria, killing, burning, and looting with no troops protecting civilians.
In Nigeria and beyond, we are all appalled by the brutality of Boko Haram, which poses a clear danger to national, regional, and international peace and security. This group continues to kill Christians and Muslims, kidnap women and children, and destroy churches and mosques. We will never forget the girls and boys kidnapped from Chibok last April, and I will never stop calling for their immediate and unconditional release.
And finally tonight, large numbers of diplomats and dignitaries attended the reception hosted by the Indian ambassador to Kuwait, His Excellency Sri Sunil Jain and Mrs. Gargi Jain, on the occasion of India's 66th Republic Day at the Regency Hotel. Kuwaiti Foreign Ministry Undersecretary Khalid Sulaiman Al-Jarallah and Governor of Farwanaya, Sheikh Faisal Al-Mahmoud Al-Malik Al-Sabah, were the chief guests for the day. Here's more on the event in this report by Salim Al-Kandari.
Ambassadors of various countries, diplomats, and a large number of the general public attended the celebration hosted by the Indian Embassy, marking its 66th Republic Day, with Kuwaiti Foreign Ministry Undersecretary Khalid Sulaiman Al-Jarallah and Governor of Farwaniyah Sheikh Faisal Al-Mahmoud Al-Malik Al-Sabah as chief guests for the day.
India is proud of its democracy and the freedom of faith it provides to its people. Economic progress in India is again on the upswing. Low inflation, booming stock market, steady currency, rebound in manufacturing sector, and the record agriculture production are the promising economic indicators. We are working to realize the economic growth trajectory of 7 to 8% in coming years. You are all aware that India-Kuwait ties have been historically warm, close, and friendly. We have maintained a tradition of high-level visits between our two countries. His Highness, the Prime Minister of Kuwait, visited India in November 2013. His Highness, the Minister of Commerce and Industry, visited India twice in recent months, first for the 4th India-Arab Conference in November and later for the Partnership Summit in Jaipur.
And here for last 37 years I am in Kuwait, working as a manager for a company. At the same time, I do all kind of social service for the help for the needy. And we are having an association called Gulf NRI Forum. That is, we are serving for all Indians, no matter caste, religion, and whatever it is. Whoever in need, we help them in many ways, except financial assistance. Other things, all we do.
Kuwait-India ties have been historically warm, close and friendly, and a large number of Indian nationals hold various businesses and jobs in Kuwait. Tonight's event marks India's 66th Republic Day. It's a happy occasion for all Indians living here in Kuwait or visiting. Various foreign dignitaries and diplomats were also present. From the Regency Hotel, this is Salam Kandiri reporting for the English News.
Thank you, Salam. For a chance to see our reports again, please visit our YouTube channel at MOI Kuwait News. Before we end, here is a quick reminder of today's headlines. The state of Kuwait condemns the terrorist bombing that took place in Egypt's North Sinai, killing dozens of civilians. The custodian of the two holy mosques issues a number of royal decrees reshuffling the cabinet and offering grants to citizens. Egyptian President His Excellency Abdel Fattah al-Sisi cut short a visit to an African Union summit after attacks that killed 30 in Sinai. A bomb blast at a mosque in southern Pakistan kills at least 35 people and injuring many more.